You know, when you think of Greek mythology, your mind probably jumps straight to Zeus, sitting on his throne on Mount Olympus, right? But that's kind of like starting a movie halfway through. Before the Olympians, there were the Titans. And before the Titans, well, that's where we're going today. All the way back to the very, very beginning, to see how the Greek cosmos was born from these raw elemental powers that first shaped everything.
So here's the big question for you. Before Zeus and his famous family, before even the Titans they went to war with, who was actually in charge? The thing is, the answer isn't really a who, it's more of a what. We're talking about an age of these vast impersonal forces, literally the building blocks of reality itself.
These first beings are what we call the primordial deities. And this is a really key idea to grasp. You wouldn't pray to them for a good harvest. They were the harvest. They were the earth, the sky, the sea. They were ideas like night and love and even darkness, all given a kind of divine form and a name.
Okay, so to get our bearings, just think of it in three huge acts. First, you've got the primordials. They're the absolute foundation of everything. From them, you get the Titans, who were the first real rulers. And then finally, after a pretty brutal war, come the Olympians, the new order with Zeus at the helm. We're starting at ground zero, with the foundation.
So how did it all kick off? Well, the most famous version of the story comes to us from the poet Hesiod. His work, the Theogony, is basically the gold standard for the Greek creation myth. And it all starts, not with a big bang, but with a big empty void.
According to Hesiod, four beings just emerged. Spontaneously, out of nothing. First, there was chaos, and we're not talking about disorder here. We mean a great gaping chasm, a void. Then came Gaia, the earth, the solid ground for everything to come. Deep inside her, Tartarus, the dim abyss of the underworld, also appeared. And finally, Eros, or love, the actual engine of attraction and creation that would get the whole cosmic party started.
And from here, things start to multiply, you know? The void, chaos, actually has two children all on its own, Erebus, who is darkness, and Nyx, who is night itself. Then, in the very first cosmic team-up, night and darkness get together and produce their exact opposites. Ether, which is the bright, shining upper air or light, and Hemera, the day. You can already see this beautiful poetic symmetry taking shape, can't you?
So, with the basic forces of light and dark now in play, the camera really zooms in on Gaia, the Earth, because she is about to, all by herself, start populating this brand new universe, starting with the sky, the mountains, and the sea.
And get this, all by herself, with no partner, Gaia gives birth to three enormous entities. First, she creates Uranus, the starry sky, to cover her completely. Then she brings forth the Urea, the towering mountains. And finally, she creates Pontus, the deep, salty sea. It's just this brilliant illustration of the Greek idea that the world literally created itself from its own essential parts.
Now that the sky exists, he becomes Gaia's partner. So earth and sky come together and you have the first cosmic marriage. But this is Greek mythology. You can probably guess this is not going to be some happy, stable relationship. No, this is going to be the source of the very first divine conflict. The union of earth and sky produces some incredible new beings, for sure, but it also leads directly to the first act of cosmic violence, a rebellion of a son against his father that's going to set a really dangerous precedent for generations to come.
Gaia and Uranus have a lot of kids, including the 12 Titans. But they also have some monstrous offspring, the one-eyed Cyclopes and the 100-handed Hecatoncheires. And Uranus is absolutely horrified by them. He despises his own children so much that, in this unbelievably cruel act, he shoves them back into their mother's womb, imprisoning them deep inside Gaia. You can imagine this causes Gaia immense pain and grief. She is just filled with rage at her tyrannical husband, and she starts the first rebellion herself. From deep within her own being, she creates this unbreakable sickle of adamant and starts hatching a plan for revenge.
So Gaia goes to her children, the Titans, and lays out her plan. But they're all terrified of their father, all of them, except one, Cronus, the youngest, and as Hesiod tells us, the most dreadful of them all. He's the one who steps forward and agrees to help his mom.
So Gaia hides Cronus. When Uranus comes to lie with Gaia that night, Cronus strikes With that adamantine sickle, he castrates his own father, and this incredibly violent act has a permanent cosmic result. It pushes Uranus up and away, forever separating the sky from the Earth. And what's wild is, this story of a son violently overthrowing his sky father, it's not just a Greek thing, it echoes even older myths from the ancient Near East. It's this ancient shared story about power and rebellion.
But in Greek mythology, even the most violent acts are sources of new life. The drops of Uranus's blood that fall on the earth, on Gaia, they give birth to the Araneas, the fearsome furies who hunt down murderers, as well as the powerful giants and the Milia nymphs. And from the severed parts thrown into the sea, a foam gathered, and out of that foam rose the goddess Aphrodite herself.
So Cronus takes over. He becomes the new king of the cosmos. But as Uranus was falling, he let out a curse, a prophecy that Cronus, too, would be overthrown by his own child. The cycle of betrayal wasn't over. It had just been handed down to the next generation.
Now, that story from Hesiod, it became the standard, the one most people know. But it's really important to remember it wasn't the only game in town. The ancient Greeks actually had a few different, sometimes competing, ideas about how the world really began.
Take Homer, for instance. His epics were just as huge as Hesiod's, but in the Iliad, he suggests that the origin of all the gods was actually Oceanus, this great freshwater river they believed circled the entire world, a totally different starting point.
And then, other traditions went in another direction entirely. The Orphics, who were part of a mystery religion, saw night as the very first thing. In their version, night lays a cosmic egg, and out of this egg hatches the force that gets the universe going. All these different myths probably came from different regions or philosophical schools, all trying to answer the same big questions. It just shows you how fluid and creative mythology really was.
So what's the legacy here? Why should we care about these abstract beings that people didn't even build temples to? Well, because understanding them gives us this absolutely profound insight into how the ancient Greeks saw their world. When you get right down to it, the primordials weren't just characters in a story. They were the story. This was the universe explaining itself through myth. They represent the deepest, most fundamental nature of reality, the building blocks of existence, just given a name and a personality. And this idea is perfectly captured when you look at the children of Nyx, of night. All by herself, she gives birth to Hypnos, which is sleep, Thanatos, which is death, Eris, strife, and even the Moirai, the fates themselves. To the Greeks, this meant that all these powerful, inescapable forces of life literally came out of the primordial darkness. It's such a powerful metaphor.
And that, right there, is the true legacy of these first gods. This origin story animated the entire world. It turned the physical environment into a gigantic family tree. It creates a reality where the sky is your great-grandfather and the earth is your great-grandmother. So I guess the final question to leave you with is this. How does our whole view of the world change when the sky, the sea, and the night are not just places, but ancestors?